We've talked about the need for national health care, and we've even talked about how some European countries and some South American countries have college tuition essentially covered by the revenues of the government, also known as taxes to many people. And yesterday we in fact spoke with Mark Nason from Fordham University about how education in the United States has become completely corporatized and about the corporate influence on education. If you didn't see that interview, if you didn't hear that interview, check that out. And in the wake of that interview, we now have learned that Germany has abolished college tuition fees altogether. We now have news that even for international students, college is tuition free. Just some minor fees are what students must pay for in Germany. The way this worked was that in Lower Saxony, they voted to become the seventh of 7 German states to abolish tuition fees. Tuition fees were, by the way, already really low compared to what we see here in the United States. German universities only started charging tuition fees in 2006, when the German Constitutional Court ruled that some limited fees combined with loans were not really in conflict with the country's commitment to universal education. This was very unpopular, and state by state in Germany, they started voting to eliminate these fees. And yesterday, Lower Saxony becoming the 7th of 7 to make that decision that they are going to eliminate those fees. And the explanation, Lewis, I'll read it to you, is just so obvious. They say, we got rid of tuition fees because we don't want higher education to depend on the wealth of the parents. This is according to Gabrielle Heinen-Jajic, the Minister for Science and Culture in Lower Saxony. Tuition fees are unjust. They discourage young people who do not have traditional academic family background from taking up study. This is so obvious. And when we talk about the lack of income mobility, of socioeconomic mobility in the U.S., if you're born very poor, some celebrities and athletes aside, you're statistically very likely to remain poor for your entire life. Part of this is lack of access to education because it is so expensive. And Lewis, this is just, it's such a good thing.
It makes perfect sense, but education is not a priority in this country, unfortunately. And if we were to make a move like this right now, I don't think we could afford it. I don't think it would work given our current situation.
Well, let's talk about a few of the elements that I want to address here, and we'll kind of talk about what Lewis is talking about. In Germany, not only do we now have this, which makes it so that you pay about €500 or $630 for or rather, these were the semester fees. They were only about $630. They've now been eliminated. So we have the education piece. 85% of those who live in Germany are covered by a basic health insurance plan, which is provided by statute. You are entitled to this basic health care plan. And then there are some others who choose to purchase additional private health insurance. The reaction in the US when you hear about these European countries with all the free stuff, taxes must be completely outrageous. And I looked into it, and lo and behold, they are not, Lewis. Kind of. The top tax rate is 45%. Okay, that's higher than the top US federal tax rate of 39.6%. And it also starts at around $330,000 rather than $406,000. So that might seem higher. But remember, in the US, in most states, you have an additional state income tax, which really makes the tax level more or less equivalent to that in Germany. In the US, it certainly does not include healthcare. It certainly does not include college education. And Lewis, time and time again, we're confronted with this reality that if we reallocated our spending based on the taxes already collected, we could be providing these things. I spoke last time I was in Mexico, I told the story at the hotel bar. I ran into an Australian teacher who said he's only been teaching a few years, so his salary is only $75,000 equivalent, and that includes health insurance, and his tax rate was only 20-something%, his effective tax rate. This can be done.
It can be done, and it's not just proper allocation of government funds and resources. It's also closing the corporate tax loopholes and making sure that individuals and companies who are supposed to pay a certain amount actually do, which I'm assuming is what's happening in Germany.
People are making too much money here in the US off of things that other countries have determined these should not be profit centers. Education, health insurance. These are things that are a fiscally conservative investment in the society for the future. I wish right-wingers would see it that way.